Have you ever saved the life of someone who could destroy yours? Mika Carter has exactly 3 seconds to decide. The gunshot cracks through the night like breaking bone. A black sedan screams around the corner. No headlights, just shadow and speed and the smell of burning rubber. A man stumbles out tall and pale, dressed in funeral black. Blood trails down his temple, dark against white skin. Behind him, 3 armed figures emerge from the vehicle. Moving with military precision, synchronized, professional. Mika's at her cafe door, keys in hand, exhausted from a 12-hour shift of serving coffee and pretending her life has meaning. Every instinct from her old life screams, run, call 911, stay invisible, stay safe. But the man's eyes find hers across 15 feet of empty street. Sharp, desperate, single-lidded, and behind the iron control, she recognizes something she knows too well. Pure, unfiltered terror. He's about to die, right here, on her quiet street where nothing ever happens. Not on my watch. FBI training kicks in before conscious thought. Muscle memory she thought she'd buried 3 months ago. She grabs his arm, yanks him through the doorway with more force than her frame suggests possible, slams the door. Deadbolt clicks, lights off. One fluid motion, no hesitation. The assailants reach the entrance within seconds. Mika's already behind the counter, pulling her Glock from the lockbox she swore she'd never need, chambering around with muscle memory that never truly fades, no matter how hard you try to forget. She doesn't shoot. Doesn't need to yet. She activates the silent alarm wired directly to the precinct, the one expensive modification she made when she bought this place, the one her therapist said was paranoia. The men outside freeze mid-advance, exchange glances. One barks rapid orders into a phone, voice muffled through the glass. Then they're gone, tires screaming into the dark, disappearing like smoke. Mika doesn't lower her weapon until her hands start trembling. The adrenaline crash hits hard. Then she turns to the man bleeding on her floor, collapsed against the vintage bookshelf she'd spent 2 weekends refinishing. He's staring at her like she just rewrote the fundamental laws of physics. "You saved me," he says, accent smooth and controlled despite the blood, despite everything. "Why would you do that?" Mika holsters the gun with shaking hands, gets the first aid kit from under the counter. "Because watching people die went out of style for me 3 months ago." His name, she'll learn in a voice that sounds like expensive whiskey and bad decisions, is Seo Ji-ho. And saving him tonight just became the most dangerous decision of her life. He doesn't tell her his name at first. Just sits on her exam table, the fold-out medical station she kept from her tactical training days, tucked in the back room between storage boxes and bags of cat food, while she cleans the gash on his temple. His breathing stays controlled, measured, like he's counting seconds between inhales. Mika reads people for a living, or did, before the bureau, before everything fell apart. She catalogs details automatically. The watch on his wrist is a Patek Philippe, worth more than her entire cafe. The vest is hand-tailored, probably Milan. Custom fit. The tattoos tell a story, an angel on his neck with wings that look almost broken in the cafe's dim lighting, a dragon wrapping his left hand with scales rendered in remarkable detail, and something else behind his ear she can't quite see. This isn't street crime. This is organization, power, territory, the kind of danger that wears expensive suits and makes people disappear without paperwork. "Aren't you going to ask who they were?" he finally says. His voice carries that accent, not heavy, just present. Soul, probably. Upper-class education. "Would you be honest with me?" "Probably not." "Then I won't waste the question." She applies the bandage with steady hands, though her pulse is hammering. "You need a hospital. This should be properly stitched." "Can't go there." "Why not?" His eyes meet hers, dark, unblinking, ancient in a young face. "They'll find me, and next time won't be a warning. Next time they'll make sure I don't walk away. No fear in his voice, just cold certainty. Like he's reading tomorrow's weather report about his own assassination. Mika steps back, studies him properly now, sees the way he holds himself despite the injury, the military bearing, the controlled violence coiled beneath expensive fabric. Who are you? Someone who should have died tonight, but didn't. Because of you. He stands with fluid grace, like a blade sliding back into its sheath. Leaves a business card on the counter, black matte finish, silver embossed number. No name, no company logo. Just 8 digits that probably lead somewhere she shouldn't call. If they return, call me. I'll ensure your safety. Then he's gone, moving through her door like a shadow, like he was never there except for the blood on her floor and the card burning a hole in her pocket. Mika doesn't sleep that night. She sits in the dark cafe holding the card, replaying the look in his eyes when those men came for him. The way he moved, injured, outnumbered, but still standing with that terrible controlled grace, still ready to fight even when the fight was already lost. Like Mia. Before the end. 3 months ago, Mika Carter walked away from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Not by choice. Not really. Because every case file started blurring into the one that mattered. The explosion that took her twin sister, her mirror, her other half, the person who knew her thoughts before she finished speaking them. Special Agent Mia Carter, 28 years old, killed on an operation that should have been routine surveillance. Simple. Safe. Except the intel was compromised. The building was rigged with enough explosives to level a city block. And Mia walked through the door Mika was supposed to take because they'd flipped a coin that morning over who took point and who covered rear. Heads or tails. Life or death. That simple. That random. That unbearably unfair. I should have died that day. Not her. Never her. Mika bought this cafe with her savings and Mia's life insurance money that felt like blood money in her bank account. Built a life so small and quiet that grief couldn't track her down, couldn't find her in the morning routine of grinding coffee beans and feeding rescue cats, and pretending that living was still something she knew how to do. She named it Sanctuary because that's what she needed it to be. Painted the walls cream because white felt too sterile and gray felt too depressing. Brought in 6 rescue cats because they needed saving, and she needed to remember how to save something, anything, even if it was just a traumatized tabby who hid under the couch for 3 weeks. Created a space where nothing violent could reach her, where she could breathe without her training automatically cataloging exits and threat vectors, and the 17 ways someone could breach her perimeter. It almost worked. But tonight, watching that stranger bleed on her floor, something shifted deep in her chest. For the first time in 3 months, she felt present, useful, alive in a way that hurt and healed simultaneously. And that terrifies her more than any weapon ever could. She sits there until dawn paints the windows gold, watches the city wake up, watches people walk past her cafe going to jobs and lives that make sense. Normal people with normal problems who've never had to choose between their sister's life and their own. Mr. Tangerine, the ginger rescue cat who finally learned to trust her, jumps onto her lap, purrs, warm and solid and real. Mika runs her fingers through his fur and tries not to think about the business card in her pocket. Tries not to wonder if she'll see those dark, desperate eyes again. Thursday night, Seo Ji-ho walks back into her cafe, like walking back into her life was always the plan. What happens when saving someone reminds you that you're still here, still breathing, still capable of protecting others? If you're feeling this story pull at your heart, subscribe now. We're just beginning, and what comes next will change everything. Trust me on this. He orders green tea, nothing else. Just sits in the corner booth, the one with the window view that's somehow both exposed and protected, and watches rain streak the windows in patterns that look almost intentional. No explanation. No apology for disappearing. No acknowledgement of the violence that brought him here. Just presence, quiet and absolute, and somehow comforting in its consistency. Mika studies him from behind the counter where she's pretending to organize receipts she's already organized 3 times. That angel tattoo catches the light when he turns his head. The military posture that never relaxes even when he's sitting. The way his eyes track every movement in the cafe. The door. The windows. The other customers. Calculating exit routes and threat assessments without conscious thought. Organized crime, she thinks, and the certainty settles in her gut like cold stone. Has to be. Nothing else makes sense. She's seen enough cases during her bureau years to recognize the markers. The discipline that comes from military training or something darker. The expensive restraint that speaks of power held carefully in check. Danger worn like tailored clothing, comfortable and familiar. "You're thinking very loudly over there," he says, without looking up from the window. His voice carries across the empty cafe. "I'm thinking you're trouble." "You're right." He finally turns to face her. "I am. So, why keep coming back to my cafe?" He's quiet for a long moment. Rain drums harder against glass. "Because it's quiet here, and I've forgotten what quiet feels like without waiting for violence to shatter it." Something in Mika's chest twists. She knows that feeling. Knows it too well. It becomes a pattern over the following weeks. Tuesday and Thursday nights at first. Then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then every single night except Sundays when she closes the cafe to visit Mia's grave and pretend she's healing. He rarely speaks beyond ordering, just exists in her space, reading thick novels with worn covers, drinking tea that gets cold while he stares at nothing, or simply sitting like he's relearning how to be still in a body that's forgotten stillness. Other customers give him space. Something in his presence makes people maintain distance instinctively, like prey animals sensing a predator even when the predator isn't hunting. Mika should report him. Call her old partner at the bureau, Agent Marcus Chen, who still texts her every week asking if she's okay, asking if she needs anything, asking if she's coming back. Instead, she investigates on her own. Old habits die hard. Maybe they never die at all. Late nights after closing, after Jiho leaves with that slight bow that feels both courteous and alien in American contexts, Mika opens her laptop and searches. She still has legacy access to certain databases, credentials that technically expired when she resigned, but that nobody's bothered to deactivate yet. Small mercies in a world of bureaucratic oversights. She searches organized crime networks, Korean syndicates operating in American cities, territory disputes, and power vacuums. The CO family name surfaces repeatedly. Weapons trafficking allegations that never went to trial. Money laundering investigations that mysteriously collapsed before prosecution. A power vacuum after the patriarch's assassination 15 years ago. Seo Jae-sung, found in his own home with 3 bullets in his chest and powder burns suggesting close range, personal, intimate violence. And one name that appears again and again, Seo Ji-ho, eldest son, current head of operations, 34 years old, educated at Seoul National University before everything went dark. Known for being cold, methodical, untouchable. No arrests, no charges, just whispers and dead witnesses and investigations that die before they begin. 3 separate FBI operations had targeted the SEO network in the past 5 years, all of them mysteriously shut down before reaching prosecution. Evidence disappeared, witnesses recanted, files sealed. Mika digs deeper, pulls case files she technically shouldn't access anymore. Reads incident reports and surveillance logs and witness statements that lead nowhere. Then she finds it. A case file from 4 months ago. A multi-agency task force investigating weapons trafficking routes through port cities. Operation Blackwater, they called it. Ambitious. High profile. The kind of case that makes careers. One investigator's name appears repeatedly in the margins, her handwriting familiar as Mika's own because they'd practiced penmanship together as kids, competing to see who could make their signatures look more official. Special Agent Mia Carter. Mika's blood turns to ice in her veins, her hands freeze on the keyboard. The cafe suddenly feels too small, too cold, the walls pressing in. Her sister was investigating this man's organization before she died. Before the explosion that the official report called bad intelligence and bad luck, and a tragedy that sometimes happens in this line of work. But what if it wasn't bad luck? What if it was elimination? What if the man drinking tea in her cafe every night knows exactly what happened to Mia? The next time Jiho arrives, Mika doesn't make tea, doesn't smile. Just slides a photograph across the table before he can sit down. Crime scene photo. Warehouse fire. 6 bodies. One of Mia's cases from Operation Blackwater, dated 3 weeks before her death. Tell me you weren't involved in this. Jiho looks at the photo for a long moment. His expression doesn't change, doesn't flicker. Nothing but that terrible control. I can't tell you that. Were you responsible for these deaths? Not directly. But I knew it would happen. He sets down his coat carefully, precisely. I could have prevented it. I chose not to. Respect check. The refusal to lie, even when it costs everything. Mika's fists curl so tight her nails dig crescents into her palms. Why are you here? In my cafe? What sick game is this? No game. His voice stays level, honest in a way that somehow makes it worse. You looked at me that night and didn't see a monster. You saw someone bleeding who needed help. And you helped without hesitation, without questions, without judgment. Do you understand how rare that is? Maybe I should have let you bleed out on the street. Maybe. Something almost like a smile crosses his face. Almost. But you didn't. That says more about your character than mine. Tense silence fills the space between them. Rain hammers harder against glass. Somewhere in the back room, one of the cats knocks something over. You need to leave, Mika says quietly, voice shaking with rage or grief or both. Now, and don't come back. I understand. But even as he walks out into the rain, even as the bell above the door chimes his departure, Mika knows with cold certainty that she'll see him again. That whatever this is between them, connection or catastrophe or both, isn't finished yet. Not even close. What Mika doesn't realize, can't know, is that Jiho has assigned protection the moment he walked out of her cafe that first night. Kang Do-hyun, his second in command for 8 years, the closest thing he has to family, follows her every morning. Not close. Never close enough to be obvious. Just close enough, watching for threats she doesn't see coming, clearing problems before they become visible. She's dangerous. Do-hyun warns Jiho over encrypted phone lines. Former federal agent, skilled combatant, she's a massive liability to operations. She's under my personal protection, Jiho says, voice carrying that edge that means the conversation is over. Make certain she stays safe. Whatever it costs. Why? She means nothing to the organization. She's just some random woman who... She's the first person in 10 years who treated me like I was worth saving instead of worth using. Jiho interrupts. His voice goes softer, more dangerous. So yes, protect her. With your life, if necessary. Do-hyun doesn't argue further. He knows better. Has known Jiho long enough to recognize when his boss has made a decision that logic won't change. But he makes his own decision. Takes his own precaution. He visits the cafe one afternoon while Jiho is handling business across town. walks up to the counter where Mika's restocking pastries she baked that morning as therapy, as distraction, as proof she can still create something instead of just destroying. Studies her with calculating eyes that miss nothing, the calluses on her hands, the way she stands balanced on both feet, the slight bulge under her left arm where she keeps the Glock even during business hours. You should distance yourself from him, Do-hyun says without preamble. Mika crosses her arms, defensive posture automatic. From who? SEO Ji-ho, my employer. He leans closer, voice dropping. People in his orbit tend to die. Violently, publicly, messily. The kind of deaths that make the news. Is that a threat? It's a fact. A warning from someone who doesn't want to see collateral damage. Do-hyun slides a card across the counter, different from Ji-ho's, white instead of black, a name embossed in plain font. When things go wrong, and they will, they always do, call this number. I'll extract you. Get you somewhere safe, somewhere far from all of this. He leaves before she can respond, disappearing into the afternoon foot traffic like he was never there. Mika stands there holding the card, her pulse hammering in her throat, understanding with sudden clarity that she's caught in something much larger and more dangerous than she realized. That saving Ji-ho that night didn't just put her in his orbit. It put her in everyone's crosshairs. That night, Mika waits with the doors locked and lights low. Defensive position. Tactical assessment complete, weapon loaded and within reach. When Ji-ho arrives right at 8 like clockwork, she doesn't let him sit down, doesn't offer tea, just blocks his path to the corner booth. I need the complete truth, she says. All of it, everything, or never come back. Your choice. Ji-ho stands there for a long moment, weighing options she can't see, calculating costs in currencies she doesn't understand. Then he says simply, "Come with me." He takes her to a private dining room in a restaurant with no name, no sign, just a red door in an alley where neon doesn't reach, and shadows collect like dark water. The kind of place you only know about if you're supposed to know about it. Inside, it's eerily quiet, empty except for them. Expensive in the way that doesn't need to advertise itself. Dark wood that smells like old smoke and older money. Low lighting that makes everything feel like confession. This is where I make decisions that destroy lives, Ji-ho says, voice echoing slightly in the empty space. Where I give orders I can't undo. Where I became the person you should despise. Mika sits across from him at the table. And I don't want to be him anymore. His voice goes raw, unfiltered. But I don't know how to be anyone else. This is all I've been for so long I've forgotten what existed before. He tells her everything. The weapons deals that fund operations across 3 states. Territory wars fought with money and violence and political pressure. The bodies. Not many. He's more efficient than that. But enough. Too many. The bribes that keep investigations from gaining traction. How he built an empire on fear and called it survival. Called it honoring his father's memory. Called it anything except what it actually was. Murder, control, power. I'm not a good man, Ji-ho says, meeting her eyes without flinching. I stopped believing I could be. Years ago. Stopped trying. Then why tell me this? Why confess to someone who could destroy you? Because you asked for truth. He reaches across the table, stops short of touching her. And you're the first person I've actually wanted to give it to. The first person who might understand that I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just witness. Someone to see who I really am. Climax I, the first complete unmasking. Mika should walk away. Should run. Should call Marcus Chen and have federal agents here within the hour. Instead, she asks the question that's been haunting her since she found that case file. My sister, Mia Carter. Did you have her killed? Ji-ho goes completely still, all that controlled violence focusing to a single point. What? FBI agent. Investigating weapons trafficking in your territory. Operation Blackwater. Died 3 months ago in an explosion. Mika's voice trembles despite her training. Did you give that order? No. Ji-ho looks genuinely stricken. I would never directly target federal agents. That's a line I don't cross. But I knew Sanho, my rival, was planning to eliminate the investigators. Had intelligence about a planned attack. I could have warned your bureau. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. I didn't. I looked the other way. Let it happen. Because stopping it would have exposed my own operations. The room tilts. Spins. Mika grips the table edge. You let her die, she whispers. You knew. And you let her die. I didn't know her name. Didn't know you existed. Didn't know anything except that federal agents were getting too close and my rival was solving the problem. Tears well in his eyes that he doesn't try to hide. I just looked away. Like I always did. Like I'd learned to do. And someone's sister died because of it. Your sister. Mika stands abruptly. The chair scrapes loud against hardwood floor. Get out. Mika. I said get out. Ji-ho stands slowly, bows deeply from the waist, the gesture of profound shame, of apology that knows it's inadequate, of respect for pain he caused. Forgive me, please. He leaves. Mika sits back down in the empty room, surrounded by food she can't eat, and silence that drowns everything, and finally lets herself cry for the first time since the funeral. This is what truth costs, she thinks between sobs that shake her whole body. It's unbearable, unspeakable, undeniable, and somehow, impossibly, she understands why he told her. Mika doesn't open the cafe for 2 days. She sits in darkness with Mr. Tangerine on her lap and all the other cats arranged around her like fuzzy sentinels. Thinks, grieves, tries to separate rage from understanding, justice from vengeance, truth from the easier lie that Ji-ho is simply a monster she can hate cleanly. Mia would hate this, she thinks. Would tell me to keep living, to move forward, to not let her death stop my life too. But how do you move forward when the man who could have saved your sister is the same man who made you feel human again? When the person responsible for your deepest wound is also the person who reminded you that healing might be possible? She makes lists, pros and cons, evidence and emotion. Tries to think like an analyst instead of a grieving sister who just wants someone to blame besides the universe and its cruel randomness. On the 3rd day, exhausted and unwashed and running low on cat food, she decides to open the cafe. Not because she's ready, because the cats need feeding and the bills need paying and living requires showing up even when you don't want to. The ambush comes at 2 p.m., right in the afternoon lull when she's alone, except for one regular reading a mystery novel in the corner. Mika's restocking when she hears the lock click open. Wrong sound. Controlled. Deliberate. Not a customer's casual entry. She doesn't turn, just reaches under the register where the Glock waits like an old friend. Don't, a voice commands in accented English. 5 men, armed with concealed weapons she can read in their stances and the way their jackets hang. Red serpent tattoos visible on their necks. Sanho's mark she recognizes from case files, from intelligence briefings, from the world she thought she'd left behind. The regular customer takes one look and flees. Smart man. Where is Seo Ji-ho? The leader demands. 40-something. Scarred face. Dead eyes. I have no idea. We think differently. He steps closer. His shoes squeak slightly on her clean floor. You're his weakness, his woman, the reason he's been distracted, making mistakes. And Sanho wants you to deliver a message. Choice check, Stand or flee. Mika's training takes over, sharp and immediate. She maps the room automatically. 5 targets. 1 exit behind her leading to the back room and alley. Poor odds for confrontation, better odds for escape. But running means they'll follow. Means they'll know she's afraid. Means they win. And Mika Carter didn't survive FBI tactical training and 3 years in the field by running from bad odds. I'm not his woman, Mika says calmly, buying time, calculating angles. I'm just someone who made a mistake letting him into my cafe. The leader raises his weapon. 9mm, she notes automatically, probably stolen or black market. Good. Then you won't mind paying for that mistake. Mika moves. First shot. Shoulder. Non-lethal but incapacitating. The leader spins and drops. Second target lunging from her left. Kneecap. Textbook shot her instructor would approve of. Third target reaching for his piece. Wrist. And the gun clatters across her floor. She drops, rolls behind the counter where she has cover and sight lines. Comes up with the Glock steady in both hands, breathing controlled, tactical mindset fully activated. Leave now, she says, or the next rounds aren't warnings. The remaining 2 men look at their fallen companions, look at Mika crouched behind cover with her weapon trained and her eyes completely calm. Make the smart choice. They drag their wounded and flee. Mika waits 30 seconds, clears the room, checks the street, locks the door with shaking hands and sinks down against it. 3 months away from the bureau and I still move like an agent. Still shoot like an agent. Still think like an agent. Maybe you never really leave. Maybe it's in your bones forever. She's cleaning blood off her floor when her phone rings. Unknown number. They came after you, Jiho's voice says without preamble. Tight. Controlled. Barely. Are you harmed? I'm fine, I handled it. Silence on the line. Then. I'm coming there. Don't. But he's already hung up. Jiho arrives 15 minutes later. Takes 1 look at the blood on her floor. Not much, just a few drops. But unmistakable. And something in him shatters. She watches it happen. Watches his control fracture. They came to your cafe, he says, voice flat, dangerous. Into your sanctuary, because of me. I handled it. You shouldn't have had to. He turns on her, and for the first time she sees rage, pure, unfiltered. The violence he usually keeps locked away. This is my fault. I put you in their sights by being selfish. By coming here night after night when I should have stayed away. You didn't pull me into anything. I chose to let you stay. Choice doesn't matter when you didn't have all the information. When you didn't know what being associated with me would cost. It's the only thing that matters. Mika's voice cracks. I'm not some civilian who needs protecting. I'm FBI. Former, but the training doesn't leave. I've put down warlords in Somalia and cartel lieutenants in Juarez. I've faced men with more weapons and worse intentions. I can handle 5 thugs with delusions of power. Jiho stares at her, really sees her for the first time maybe. The competence, the capability, the warrior beneath the barista's apron. You could have died. So could you. Every single night you walk out that door. That's different. Why? Because you're used to it? Because you've accepted that violence is just part of your existence? Mika steps closer. Close enough to see the tears he won't let fall. I'm not your weakness, Jiho. I'm not your redemption or your salvation or whatever you've built me up to be in your head. I'm just a woman trying to live a quiet life, and you brought war to my doorstep. I know. His voice breaks. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so... He stops. Breathes. Composes himself with visible effort. I should go. Should have gone weeks ago. This was always going to end badly. Yes, Mika says. You should. But he doesn't move. And neither does she. I'll end this, Jiho says quietly. Sanho, The threat. All of it. I'll make sure you're safe even if it costs me everything. And then what? Then you ride off into the sunset and I'm supposed to just forget you existed? Then I'll leave. Disappear. Like you asked weeks ago when you found out who I really am. Mika's chest tightens painfully. That's not what You deserve better than this. Jiho's eyes are raw, honest, more vulnerable than she's ever seen him. Better than me. Better than violence and danger and waking up wondering if today's the day someone uses you to hurt me. Commitment. Check. The willingness to walk away for the other's good. He turns to leave. Mika's voice stops him at the door. What if I don't want better? What if I just want real? Jiho looks back. You don't know what real looks like in my world. Then show me. Stop protecting me from truth and just show me who you actually are. Something in his expression shifts, softens. Are you certain? No. But show me anyway. The kidnapping happens fast and professional. Mika's walking home from a supply run, cat food and coffee beans, normal life things, when the white van pulls up. No warning. 3 men in tactical gear. They have her restrained with zip ties before she can reach her weapon. Professional. Efficient. Not Sanho's usual thugs. Chloroform pressed over her mouth and nose. Chemical sweet smell. Darkness pulling her down. She wakes in a warehouse that smells like rust and old fish and defeat. Concrete floor cold beneath her. Chains securing her wrists to a floor bolt that looks new, installed just for this purpose. Her head pounds. Mouth tastes like copper and chemicals. Not ideal, she thinks with a dark humor that kept her sane during her worst operations. But I've been in worse situations. Probably. Sanho stands over her. Older than his photos suggested. 50s maybe. Scarred face telling stories of violence survived. Eyes that have seen too much and felt too little. Seo Jiho cares for you, he says. His accent is thicker than Jiho's. Seoul, but different region. This makes you valuable, a commodity, a tool. He doesn't care about me, we barely know each other. Then why did he order his men to shadow you? Why does he visit your establishment every night like a lovesick teenager? Sanho smiles. Cold. Reptilian. Love makes men weak, creates vulnerabilities where none existed, and weakness makes them controllable, makes them break. Mika tests the chains subtly. Strong. Military grade, but the floor bolt, that's different. Newer. Not set as deep as it should be. Whoever installed it rushed the job. What do you want from me? For Jiho to come negotiate your release. Sanho crouches down to her level. His breath smells like cigarettes and expensive whiskey. And when he arrives, desperate and emotional and weak, I'll execute him. While you watch. So he dies, knowing he failed to protect yet another person he cared about. Not happening, Mika thinks. Not today. Not ever. She waits. Breathes. Focuses. Counts heartbeats and calculates angles. When Sanho turns away to give orders to his men, Mika acts. She braces both feet flat against the wall behind her, channels every ounce of leg strength from countless tactical training sessions, yanks the chain with everything she has, core tight, breathing controlled. The bolt groans, metal on concrete, protesting. She pulls harder, visualizes the bolt coming free, believes it possible because belief is half the battle. The bolt cracks free with a sound like breaking stone. 4 guards rush her. Mika is already moving, chains wrapped around her fists like improvised weapons. First guard, leg sweep using the chain as leverage, elbow to temple as he falls, down and unconscious. Second, disarm his knife, knee to solar plexus, use his momentum to throw him into the third guard. Both down. Third, actually skilled, ex-military probably. But Mika's FBI training was designed to counter military combatives. She reads his stance, anticipates his moves. Counter his punch, hyperextend his elbow, knockout strike to the jaw. Down. Fourth. Smartest of the bunch, keeps distance, reaching for his gun. Mika throws the chain like a whip. It wraps around his weapon hand. She pulls hard, closes distance while he's off balance, delivers a knockout punch her instructor would be proud of. 15 seconds, maybe 20. Breathing hard, but controlled. She's free. Sanho stares at her, shocked into stillness. You're not just some woman, you're FBI. Mika finishes, rubbing her wrists where the zip ties cut deep. And you just made a serious mistake. Several, actually. She walks toward the exit, limping slightly, her ankle twisted during the fight. Minor sprain, probably, bleeding from a cut on her cheek, but walking under her own power, head high. Sano doesn't stop her, just watches her go with something like respect in his dead eyes. Jiho arrives 10 minutes later with 20 armed men and enough firepower to level the building. Tactical formation, night vision. The full weight of his organization mobilized in minutes. He finds Mika sitting on the curb outside, wiping blood from her knuckles with her torn shirt. Police sirens wailing in the distance. She called them after escaping. Anonymous tip about a weapons cache. "You're late," she says without looking up. Jiho stops dead, stares at her, at the unconscious guards being dragged out by his arriving team, at the broken chains dangling from her wrists like violent jewelry, at the warehouse behind her where Sanho's empire is about to collapse under federal pressure. "You freed yourself," he says, voice strangled with emotion she can't name. "Told you, I don't need rescuing. Never did." Jiho drops to his knees right there, on the dirty concrete, on the street in front of his men and God and everyone. A crime boss kneeling before a woman his organization would have dismissed as collateral. "You're not my weakness," he says, voice shaking like earthquake tremors. "You're the reason I want to stop being what I've become. You're the reason I remember that being human is still possible." Commitment check. The moment of total surrender. Mika touches his face gently. Her fingers leave blood smears on his perfect white skin. Then stop. Just stop. It's not that simple. There are obligations, debts, territories. Yes, it is that simple. She makes him look at her. You choose. Every single day. Every single moment. You choose who you want to be. The empire or the man. The past or the future. The monster or the human. Jiho looks up at her with tears streaming down his face, unashamed. "And if I choose wrong? If I fail? Then I'll be there to remind you who you really are underneath all that armor and violence." She kisses him. Soft. Brief. Tasting rain and blood and something like hope. Like possibility. Like the future might not be predetermined after all. When she pulls back, Jiho is crying openly, and she's never seen anything more beautiful than this dangerous man choosing to be vulnerable. "I don't deserve this," he whispers. "Don't deserve you." "Probably not," Mika says honestly. "But I'm choosing you anyway. Choosing to believe you can be better. That we can build something real from all this wreckage." First kiss, the promise to try together. Behind them, sirens grow louder. Federal agents will arrive soon. Choices need making, consequences need facing. But for this moment, they just breathe together. Just exist. Just believe. Jiho declares war on Sanho's network, but he does it through the law. Through the system he's spent years circumventing. He contacts the FBI directly, requests a meeting with the special agent in charge, walks into their building without weapons or lawyers or demands. "I want to cooperate," he tells them. "Fully, completely, whatever you need." He hands over evidence that took him a decade to accumulate, ledgers documenting every transaction, recordings of meetings he secretly preserved as insurance, Locations of weapons caches and smuggling routes, names of corrupt officials and dirty cops, everything. I'm not requesting immunity, he tells the federal prosecutor, a hard-eyed woman named Sarah Davidson, who spent 5 years trying to bring him down. I'm requesting the chance to make this right, to dismantle what I built, to face consequences for what I've done. Davidson looks at him like he's grown a second head. Why now? Why after all this time? Because someone reminded me that it's never too late to choose better. Jiho says simply. It takes weeks. Coordinated raids across 3 states. Hundreds of arrests. The kind of multi-agency operation that makes careers and headlines. Sanho fights back, of course. One final desperate assault. He attacks the warehouse where Jiho is meeting with federal agents to provide testimony. 15 armed men against Jiho's minimal security detail and the agents present. The confrontation is brief and brutal. Jiho's team is outnumbered but superior in training and motivation. They're fighting to protect something. Sanho's men are just fighting. When it ends, Sanho is in federal custody, zip-tied and reading his rights, his empire in ruins. But Jiho is on the ground, an old wound from years ago reopened during the fight, plus 3 new bullet wounds, shoulder, side, leg. Nothing immediately fatal but bleeding badly. Unconscious and pale. Mika arrives with the paramedics she called the moment she heard about the attack, rides with him in the ambulance, holds his hand while EMTs work, while machines beep, while his blood pressure drops and recovers and drops again. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispers fiercely. "Not after everything we've been through. Not when we're just starting." Jiho's eyes flutter open, barely, unfocused. "You came." "Of course I came, you idiot. Where else would I be?" "Why?" "Because I didn't come to save you." Mika's voice cracks, tears streaming down her face. "I came to pull you toward the light, to remind you what you're fighting for. And I'm not finished yet. We're not finished." Jiho manages the faintest smile. "True, stubborn woman." "You have absolutely no idea how stubborn I can be." He recovers slowly over 3 weeks in the hospital. Surgeries to repair damage, physical therapy to regain mobility. Long nights staring at ceiling tiles and wondering if redemption is actually possible or just a beautiful lie people tell themselves. Mika visits every day, brings books and terrible hospital cafeteria coffee and stories about the cafe. About Mr. Tangerine's latest antics. About the regular customers who ask where Jiho is, who miss his quiet presence in the corner booth. And when he's strong enough, when he can stand without his legs trembling, Jiho makes his final choice. He stands before a federal judge and says clearly, "I'm ready to face the consequences of what I've done. All of it." The sentence is 5 years, reduced from what it could have been due to his substantial cooperation and the dozens of cases his evidence closed. Still significant, still real. Mika sits in the gallery, watching. When the gavel falls with that terrible finality, Jiho looks back at her. She mouths, "I'll wait." He mouths back, "Don't. Live your life." But she knows she will wait, has already decided, already committed. Because some people are worth waiting for. Some love is worth fighting for. Some futures are worth believing in even when the present looks dark. 5 years pass like seasons changing, like tides turning, like the slow, inevitable healing of wounds you thought would kill you. Mika keeps Sanctuary running and thriving. Expands it gradually with the settlement money from Jiho's cooperation agreement, money he insisted she take, money that came from dismantling his empire. Adds a small lending library in the back room. Starts hosting book clubs for neighborhood women. Offers free self-defense classes every Saturday morning, teaching others what the FBI taught her, passing on skills that might save lives. The cafe becomes what she always wanted, an actual sanctuary. A place where people feel safe, where single mothers bring their kids for hot chocolate on cold mornings, where elderly couples come for their anniversary lunches, where community happens naturally, organically, beautifully. She visits Ji-ho monthly, makes the 3-hour drive to the federal facility where he's serving his sentence, brings photos and stories and updates about the life continuing outside those walls. Ji-ho transforms slowly, carefully, genuinely, reads philosophy and psychology, takes college courses through the prison education program, studying social work and trauma counseling, writes letters to the families he harmed, long, painful apologies that may never be sufficient but represent everything he can offer. Some families respond with rage, some with forgiveness, some never respond at all, and he accepts that as his right consequence. "I'm learning how to be a person," he tells her during one visit, sitting across from her with a table between them and guards watching from a distance. "Instead of a weapon, instead of a monster wearing human skin." "You're succeeding," Mika says honestly. "I can see it. The way you carry yourself, the way you talk. You're different. Because you gave me a reason to be different." "No." She reaches across the table, takes his hand. "You chose to be different. I just witnessed it. Believed it possible. But the work is all yours." When he's released on a cold November morning 5 years later, Mika is waiting at the gate. Dawn light painting everything gold. Steam rising from 2 cups of coffee she brought from the cafe. His favorite blend, the expensive Ethiopian roast he used to order. Ji-ho walks out wearing donated clothes that don't quite fit, carrying a single box of belongings. Thinner than she remembers. Older. Gray threading through his dark hair now. But his eyes are different, clearer, more human, less haunted. "Hi," Mika says simply. "Hi." He stops a few feet away, uncertain. "You didn't have to come. Where else would I be?" She hands him the coffee. "Welcome home." His hand shakes, taking the cup. "I don't have much. No empire, no power, no money except what I saved from the prison jobs. Just myself. Just this person I'm trying to become." Mika smiles, and it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. "That's all I ever wanted. Just you. Just real. Just honest." "Are you certain? Because you could—" She kisses him. Right there in the parking lot. Proper kiss this time. Deep and meaningful and full of 5 years of waiting and hoping and believing. "I'm certain," she says when they finally break apart. "I've had 5 years to be certain. Come on, let's go home." They reopen Sanctuary together the following week, as equals, as partners in both romance and business, building something beautiful from the ashes of what was. Ji-ho handles mornings, makes tea and coffee with the precision of ritual, learns to engage with customers without them instinctively flinching, without them sensing danger, slowly wins them over with consistent kindness, with remembering their orders, with being reliably gentle. Mika runs evenings, hosts community events and book clubs, teaches her self-defense classes, builds the network of connection she always dreamed about. At night, they sit in the corner booth where it all started 5.5 years ago. The same booth, the same view of the street. Different people now, barely recognizable from who they were. "Do you ever regret choosing me?" Ji-ho asks one quiet evening, rain streaking the windows like tears. "Regret waiting? Regret believing I could change?" Mika considers it honestly. "I regret what it cost. Regret the violence and danger. Regret that Mia never got to meet who you've become. But the choice itself? Never. Not once. Your sister would have liked who you are now." Mika squeezes his hand across the table. "Not who you were, but who you chose to become." She always believed people deserved second chances if they were willing to do the real work. "How can you be so certain?" "Because she told me that." about herself, about me, about everyone. She believed in redemption before I did. Before either of us did. Jiho is quiet for a long moment. Rain drums harder. Mr. Tangerine jumps onto the table between them, purring, comfortable. I want to honor her memory properly, Jiho says finally. Want to do something meaningful, something that matters. Like what? Like starting a foundation for families of crime victims, offering them support, counseling, resources. Everything I wish had existed when my father was killed. Everything that might have changed my path if I'd had access to healing instead of just revenge. Mika's eyes fill with tears. She would have loved that. She really would have. Will you help me build it? Every day, every step, together. Climax 3. The quiet promise that changes everything. Mika leans her head on his shoulder. They sit like that for a long time, watching rain and breathing together, and believing in futures they're building with their own hands. 6 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, Jiho wakes early to find Mika already in the kitchen. She's making breakfast, eggs and toast and fresh coffee that smells like heaven. Humming softly to herself. Morning light streaming through windows making everything golden. Morning, Jiho says, leaning in the doorway just watching her. Morning. Mika turns, smiles, kisses him properly. Sleep well? Better than I have in years. Better than I ever thought possible. She pours him coffee. Good. You have that foundation meeting at 10, remember? The lawyer needs you to sign paperwork. I remember. He takes the cup, holds it with both hands, lets the warmth seep into his skin. Thank you. For what? For this. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. For waiting when you should have moved on. For showing me that redemption isn't just a beautiful idea. It's real work that actually changes things. And it hits him. The full weight of grace. The impossible gift of love that sees your worst and chooses you anyway. This is home. This small, quiet life. This woman who saw the monster and believed in the man underneath. This ordinary morning that feels like the greatest miracle I've never deserved. Mika, he says softly, I'm home. She turns from the stove, looks at him with those dark, knowing eyes that see everything and love him anyway. I know you are. Finally. Outside, the city wakes, sirens and traffic and the chaos of life continuing. Inside Sanctuary, two people who were broken find their way to wholeness, together, healing, human, building a future one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Mr. Tangerine purrs on the counter. Morning light paints everything gold. Coffee steams, breakfast cooks, life happens. And for the first time in a decade, Jiho thinks, I believe in mercy, in second chances, in love that transforms instead of destroys. I believe I'm home. Love doesn't erase the past, but it gives us courage to build a better future. If this story reminded you that it's never too late to choose better, that redemption is possible when we face our truth with humility, would you subscribe? We tell these motivational, inspirational stories of accountability and grace every week. Stories about the quiet courage it takes to love someone's becoming, not just their past. Because here's what I hope you take from Mika and Jiho's story. You're never too broken to be loved. It's never too late to choose differently. And home isn't a place. It's the person who sees your scars and loves you anyway. Hit that subscribe button. We have more stories like this waiting. Stories that remind us all that kindness matters. Second chances are real. And love, real love, transforms everything.